Welcome to our ongoing conversation on Katiba at 10. And of course, I am at the residence of a man who was the vice president when the constitution was being promulgated, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. And we carry on with the conversation now. Now, this week, Kenya marks the 10 years since the 2010 constitution was promulgated. But at the same time, Honorable Kalonzo, we know that discussions are emerging over the possible amending of the constitution at a referendum. With the 2010 constitution not fully implemented, at least that's what 77% of Kenyans say in a new poll. Why do you, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, believe the constitution needs to be amended through the Building Bridges initiative?
The Building Bridges initiative was a result of the famous handshake between President Uhuru and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. And it happened at a time when the country was going through some very high moment of tension following the elections of 2017. When I came back from Germany, I remember calling on both President Uhuru and Raila to say, you cannot consider the matter of dialogue as an option. There's no option. We must have dialogue in this country. And I'm happy that eventually, even though we were left out of the discussions, but the result was a handshake, the famous handshake, and a lessening of the tension nationally. Now we have a country that was able to take a breather, and the 9-point formulation that they came up with, we hope that we can be able to unite this country. Now, the president thinks there's a constitutional moment. Personally, I would want to see the final version of the document that was presented on the 27th of November 2019 at Bomas, which had to go through the process of validation. And I believe that this time around, we should be able to get it right. Be able, after all, remember Kenyans were saying...
Getting it right, what does getting it right mean? What do you want to see amended as Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka?
We gave our discussion, we gave our paper before the Yusuf Haji Commission as Wiper Democratic Movement. For instance, there's always this slight discomfort between Parliament when it comes to the program of work of the Senate and that of the National Assembly. And in fact, although there's a constitutional provision where they do not agree, then can go into mediation, I think it is important to look at best practices. We made it clear that I'm a champion of the Senate. The Senate should be the upper house. We made it very clear. Yeah, and then the National Assembly. That bills can also originate, right, from both houses of Parliament, the National Assembly and the Senate. We made it clear that personally I do not approve of the committee system in Parliament, because we have also seen those as avenues of corruption. Kenyans, I'm sure, will be happy to see question time with ministers who are probably elected, right, coming in as elected MPs, and they come in as ministers, and they'll be answerable on the floor of the House. But the spirit of the Constitution, I agree with the majority feeling of 77% that we have not been faithful in the implementation of the Constitution.
Where does the buck stop if we have not fully implemented?
Well, I don't think it's a matter of blaming anybody. We are a nation. The Constitution is so big, it cannot be blamed on one person. It is all of us as a people.
If you were president when the new constitution came into play, how would you have implemented it differently?
Of course, we had the Constitutional Review Implementation Committee. We had all those places there. We should have moved with greater speed. But again, a constitution is not a static document. It's not a stone. In fact, a constitution has ability to breathe. This is why we are saying, this constitution is saying, do something about me, all right? So that it can be a better document to better serve the present and the future generations of this country.
If it is true that 60% of Kenyans feel amending the constitution is not necessary right now, where does that leave us? Again, it's a poll, it could go either way.
But if it is given to them, they still have to make a decision. It is one thing to feel we do not need to amend it, and another thing to be faced with a document, then you have to exercise your democratic right. Perhaps the 60% who feel they don't want to vote for an amendment to the Constitution can do the most important thing, stay away. But I don't think once they interrogate, because I still insist we should, first of all, get the final document the BBI team has come up with, look at it, right? Then Kenyans will be able to make informed choices with regard to whether or not we have a constitutional moment or whether we need to amend the 20% that we have talked about. And I've given you some indications.
As a constitutional lawyer, and I want us to move a little bit forward, and we've spoken a little bit about Parliament, but as a constitutional lawyer, dare I say a senior counsel, what are your thoughts about how the judiciary has performed under the new constitution and it's the fact that it finds itself at loggerheads with the executive over funding to the judiciary, the swearing in of the 41 judges? What is Kalonzo's take on that?
Well, I can tell you, I don't think it is again time to blame the judiciary or blame the executive. This must be the teething aspects of Constitution 2010. We have seen the mistakes. I believe myself as a senior counsel completely in the very important matter of independence of the judiciary and the doctrine of separation of powers, right? A legislature which is free to make unhindered all the laws, all right? And the judiciary, of course, which also applies, because if we do not have justice in our courts, then we cannot pretend to have a country. Similarly, the executive should also be held to account. That is, therefore, that concept of separation of powers is so important, all right? There should be no friction. Therefore, we are yet to see a completely independent judiciary, and that should be the focus.
And again, you say you don't want to blame anyone, because some say the executive has not...
No, you can't blame anybody. You can't blame anybody, because there has even been an advisory on the appointment of the 41 judges, all right? I think even the Court of Appeal judges looked at that. And because there's some lawyers, I think some people want to say, never mind the objection by the president, okay, we want them amended. Appoint the 41 judges. I think that debate is still ongoing, even before the courts. I think there's an application which I think is soon to be heard and determined.
One of the reasons that the writers of the Constitution saw it fit to strengthen the judiciary was to make them the voice of reason during elections, a place where election petitions could be taken to, and it was believed and trusted that they would be handled in an impartial manner, because you know our history with elections in this country, Honorable Kalonzo. Now, despite the new Katiba, we saw very heated presidential elections in 2013, in 2017, where you played a very key role. In your view, how would a constitutional change address the question of how we can attain free and fair elections in this country? Because that still concerns many Kenyans.
Well, first of all, the period given to the Supreme Court to determine a contested outcome of a presidential election is very tight. It's too tight. Mm-hmm. I think it's just like 14 days, yeah? Within that time, what can the judges themselves do without occasioning miscarriage of justice? This is why, even under the BBI process, a recommendation is made that you don't determine this matter so quickly, okay? You need expanded time. So that everybody is able now to sit and, agree. So you begin to see why it is important to continue to work on our constitution.
But moving from the judiciary to the legislature, and you have Wiper Party members obviously in Senate and in the National Assembly as well, there are those who believe that the handshake, which you've spoken of quite a bit today, restricted the minority side of the legislative, actually denying Kenyans the source of checks and balances on the executive that they hoped for. What is your response to this?
I think that question should be asked to the party. Okay, we have a registered coalition called NASA. Mm-hmm. And the membership of NASA, as we all know, is ODM, which has more members than the rest of us, on account of their having been privileged to produce the presidential flag bearer, which is a factual thing. Now, the president is the leader of Jubilee Party. The prime minister happens to be the leader of ODM, which is a leader political party formation. And therefore, Kenyans, I think, need to be excused for thinking, hey, this is not good for a system of checks and balances. But I think that ODM have time to explain their positioning. So, structurally, opposition is there. However, in the interest of bringing the country together, say under BBI, Kenya should also understand that we have this moment that we must get over in order now to better prepare for greater the role of the opposition party and the greater role of the governing party.
If they'd like to see that now and they're concerned that this handshake compromised that?
I don't think so. We're still talking, aren't we? Some of us are very vocal. We're very vocal and say whoever it is who has stolen the billions, COVID money, right? When Kenyans are aching, they're hurting, they're hungry, they're even angry. Now Kenyans have become very angry over this stealing of the billions of the COVID. Now that can only come from an opposition figure.
Are you still in the opposition?
Of course we are. Although, of course, you
signed an agreement.
A cooperation agreement is not a coalition agreement. If we sign that,
you've expressed a desire to
yes, we are determined. We're actually okay. If I sign the coalition agreement, then we'll be part of the government. So a cooperation agreement.
In spirit, can you really be in the opposition, Honorable Kalonzo?
I'm just telling you, we are not ODM. ODM will continue. If we sign the coalition agreement, ODM will be free to continue as the opposition, because they are not ready to sign the coalition agreement themselves, and I've said it. And so, when you see us taking strategic moves, it does not mean we are abandoning ship or we are thinking less in terms of the better service to our people, right? When the time arises like now, it has arisen to say no to theft, to grant theft, we say so. But of course, it's very disturbing to see a person like the Deputy President of the Republic talking as if he's himself opposition. Now that is where the confusion is.
You served as a former, and I had another question, but you've raised that. You served as a vice president. You see what the deputy president is doing now. A man who looks alienated from the president himself.
Is he alienated or is he self-alienated? You know, I don't believe in those taggings again. Mm-hmm. Somebody can self-alienate and then you play the victim, all right? Now, you must always distinguish that, because anybody looking forward to elect a person who wants to paint himself as a victim, are they really victims? Or are they not self-alienating? Because I served as vice president to President Kibaki, and I think Mr. Kibaki had a very comfortable time, even when his health was not what it should have been. But I was there for him. And not being there for Kibaki, I was there for this country.
So you believe the vice president the deputy president could choose to not attend state functions?
I don't know. You should ask him that question and ask his boss the same question. I'm not Uhuru Kenyatta, and neither am I William Ruto. Please remember, if you get a little confusion in your mind, that Kalonzo Musyoka is a member of the opposition.
Okay, thank you. You've made that quite clear. Honorable Musyoka, let me give you your last word, your brief reflection on the 2010 Constitution on this day.
I'm trying to convince my fellow Kenyans that we should not lose an opportunity because of the current difficulties that we are going through as a people. Very depressing situations as a people, as a country, to miss out on an opportunity to right the wrongs that made some of the very few selfish people brand some of us, erroneously. The time to prove I was never a watermelon is now. And this is the document that we need to work on.
Honorable Kalonzo, thank you for your time.
Thank you.